Ready? You ready? Excited. How's everybody doing? My name is Shell Bramell, and this is your Inner Circle. Today, we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship. The title of this panel is Entrepreneur with the focus on new. So we have three awesome, amazing, wonderful personalities who are full-time entrepreneurs. They're in their journey, but they're not so far removed that they can't provide insightful advice and answer your questions. So I'm excited to introduce them. I'm excited to get into this conversation. But before we do that, I just have some housekeeping things. There's about 10 to 15 seconds of delay between what we say and what you hear. So just keep that in mind when you're using the chat functionality. Second, I want you to use the chat functionality. So you have a chat, you can ask questions. We'll answer your questions as you ask them. So go ahead and throw that in the chat. And then we also have some polls for you. So if you can answer those three questions for us before we get started: where are you from? What do you consider yourself? And you'll see the answers for that. And how are you feeling about the quarantine? So if you can answer those questions in the poll, please go ahead and do that. And then if you have any questions for our wonderful panelists as we get started, we will answer those questions as we go. A little bit more about your inner circle. The what behind it is that we want to provide lessons in your living room. This was pre-social distancing. This was pre-coronavirus. The first session that we did was actually in January. The seeds were planted on last year. The why is because I think information is vital. It's essential to what we need to excel. So information is super important. And from my travels and most of the information, the subject matter that I picked up, it was not in a classroom. It wasn't in a formal classroom. It was through sessions like these. It was through working. It was just through interacting with individuals. And that's where I got the information from. So I want to pay that forward. So that's what your inner circle is in a nutshell. But that's enough about this. We'll talk about more about that as we go. We will introduce our panelists, and we will start with Julius. Julius, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Julius Bryant, originally from Lansing, Michigan. Graduated from Central Michigan back in 2010. Started my career after college in GE, sales and marketing program. I worked there for about 5 years. Decided I didn't like that and wanted to move on. So I went to grad school. I went to Emory in Atlanta. And after Emory, I went to work at Amazon in marketing. Did that for 2 years, decided I didn't like that too much either, and I became a full-time entrepreneur. So I've been a full-time entrepreneur since July of last year. My company is called Jack's Rideshare Rentals, and we rent vehicles to people who want to drive for Uber who don't have access to a vehicle.
That's awesome. Thanks. How about Christian? How about you?
Hello everybody, my name is Christian Williams. A little bit about me: went to University of Detroit Mercy, did a 5-year dual BSBA MBA program, and then began my professional career at Toyota. Decided that was not the direction I wanted my career to go, and I resigned in actually last April 2019. So this will be 1 year coming up in next month actually. And so I started my business. Thank you. And I started my business, which is the CJW Consulting Group, in October of 2018, which actually helps people with resume development, career coaching, interview prep, writing cover letters, optimizing LinkedIn, and just really helping people get the promotions and secure the careers that they deserve.
That's amazing. That's a needed service.
Thank you.
All right, last but not least, Bree.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bree Hadley, and I am founder of Body by Bree. I am from Detroit, Michigan, and I attended Central Michigan University. I graduated in 2018 in May, and I started Body by Bree in October of 2018. I'm a personal trainer, and I train a lot of people virtually. I also do meal plans and nutrition coaching as well. I am not a full-time entrepreneur. I still work at a gym as well as taking my own clients outside of that and training people virtually. So.
That's perfect. Still.
Also, I just got into PA school. My ultimate goal is to be a holistic and healthy provider of care.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. All right. So y'all ready to jump into these questions?
Yes.
So we're going to be here for about 3 hours, everybody. So go ahead and strap. I promise it won't be that long. Somebody's trolling in the chat already, but we'll get to that. So, question number one. I'm going to throw this out to everybody, but we'll start with Christian. Why did you want to become an entrepreneur?
So to answer that, I'm not sure that I did, to be honest. It was kind of an accident. If you knew me when I was younger, I used to actually stray very far away from this and say, oh, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. It's unstable. What if I can't pay my bills? And so it's kind of funny that I ended up here, but I just really enjoyed, what I do and really helping people. And I realized that was actually where my passion lied versus, working in kind of corporate cost analysis. I just wasn't really for me. And so I just kind of realized that I think that's where God was directing my path, was that I was supposed to be doing this. So to be honest, it was a complete accident. It was not something that I always thought I wanted to do.
Awesome. That's a great answer. That why is important, helping people. I love it. Bree, how about you?
Similar to him, I used to think business was scary. I was like, a good thing I'm so not business minded, all of this. It actually started with me working at a job I didn't like, but that's probably another question. But I think I felt the need to be more creative and do more with my space, because I knew as a PA, I wanted people to know me for being healthy and holistic and come to seek me for my holistic remedies. But at the same time, I wasn't building my brand currently to become that. So then I was like, I don't have to wait until I get into school. It was actually after school rejection that I started my company to still have influence.
Okay, awesome, love it. Final, last but not least, Julius.
Yeah, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I can reflect all the way back to like middle school, where I was shoveling driveways in the winter and raking leaves in the fall, trying to make a little bit of extra money. So really money was the beginning of it. And I can go through high school where I was selling Nextel ringtones when those were a thing, and making t-shirts and ordering shoes wholesale from China and selling those to my friends. I've been doing it since I can remember. And at that point, the motivation was always money. Me transitioning out of corporate, the motivation was less about the money and more about the freedom. So I just had the confidence and the faith in myself that I was able to lead a business. I always felt like the people I was working for and the jobs that I worked were not as smart as me. And I had to still listen to them and follow their directions purely because of the structure that I was in corporate America. So kind of making that exit was really, the idea behind it was really just freedom. I wanted to be free to make my own decisions and control my own destiny.
Awesome. Love it. Love all of those answers. So we actually have a question coming from the chat already. So I'm gonna ask this question. Christian and Julius, was it scary stepping away from your secure salary? And then what put you to take that step? And that was from Logan.
Yes. Very scary. Which is the reason why I never wanted to do it. I was terrified, to be honest, but I don't even know how to tell you to prepare for that. Besides, if you're thinking about doing it, obviously stack up some money, kind of like, pad your reserves. Obviously don't have your expenses be, super high, and then just really look at the trend analysis where you're kind of like, okay, well, generally my business does X, Y, Z, and then try to like structure your life around that. But it was very much scary because from 2015 until 2019, I was used to working for a big major automotive manufacturer and having that, secure salary, 2 bonuses a year. They even gave us paid overtime. So to walk away from that and really not have, a solid baseline of what you're getting every month was definitely scary.
Fair. Good call.
For me, it was a little bit scary. But for me, what I did was I went back and I left my job in July of 2019. So I went back and looked at the entire year for 2018. And I wanted to understand how much money I spent through this entire year, right? So I went back and looked at that number and divided that into 12. And I said, divided 12 into that number. And that was the number that I needed to have in my bank account for me to be comfortable leaving. So for me, it was just a matter of making sure I had the financial resources to support myself. Because the reality is, when you start a business, typically it's going to be a while before you can cross that corporate income that you might have had before. So you have to brace yourself for that and understand that you have to maybe change some of your spending habits. But I wouldn't say it was really super scary. I mean, I prepared for it. I had planned on leaving my job for a while, and I saved up to prepare for that. So I was prepared financially when it came time to leave. It is an adjustment because you don't have a paycheck coming every week, and instead of seeing that bank account go up every 2 weeks, it's just going down, until you reach a point where you can afford to pay yourself what you were making before. So I would say it was just more of an adjustment for me than it was scary.
Gotcha.
I have a comment to add to that too.
Go ahead.
So I actually, for a while, didn't have another job either, and I was just Body by Bree, and it was a good experience. You know, like I made enough, my business made enough to still make me secure. I'm also like, I don't have kids or anything to worry about as well, so it was a little bit easier to do that. But I went to a business conference, and I don't know, I forgot what the lady's name is from Skinforia, but she's the founder of Skinforia. And she was saying that for like a whole year before she started Skinforia is like a high-end but well-priced facial bar in Detroit, for those who don't know. And what she did is she worked at a bunch of different businesses where she had to act as every different role in that business. And it taught her everything she needed to know about how to do it herself. And I realized I was a personal trainer, but other than being certified and having a degree, I never worked for a gym. And I think there's a lot of value in working for the business that you want to do your own. And you can learn a lot about the way a bigger business does it so that you will succeed as a smaller one and one day bigger.
I love that. Tremendous insight. Good insight. So next question. Thank you for that question, Logan. Next question. I'll start with Julius because I love the background. I love your story. How did the idea for your business come about?
So I was actually in business school at the time, at Emory, and I went to business school full time. So completely left my job, go to school full time. The idea is you pick up new skills and then you can transition into a new function or industry than you were in before. So I was in business school. At the time, I really wanted to work for Twitter. That was like my number one company. And there was this guy who I found on Twitter actually who worked at Twitter. And I used to be just killing his inbox like every day, like just telling him I wanted to come work at Twitter. And finally he was like, just come out, like stop sending me all these messages, like just come out here. So I skipped the whole week of school. I booked a flight to San Francisco. On my way to San Francisco, I stopped in LA to hang out for a few days with some friends out there. Went out to lunch. One of those friends, he played professional basketball overseas. He was saying that when he goes overseas to play ball, he rents out his car because it's just sitting there collecting dust otherwise. So that was kind of like the initial spark that gave me the idea. So I took that idea and I said, I wonder if I can take that model of you having an asset, in this instance a car, that's underutilized and finding a group of people who can utilize that asset. So I came back to Atlanta, started doing some research, ran it by one of my classmates in business school who's now my business partner. And we just went for it. We bought a cheap car and we put it out on the market and it was rented immediately and it worked. And that was about 1.5 years ago. So we started with one car and now we have 40. So it's just been growing ever since.
Yeah.
Did you say, how many cars did you say?
40.
And how long? When did you start?
1.5 years. October 2018 is when we started.
So that's probably purchasing, what, 2 cars a month or so?
Yeah.
Wow. Good stuff. Bree, how about you? How did Body by Bree, like, did you just say one day I just want to do this for the rest of my life, or how did that work?
Well, I really wanted to develop like influence before I became a PA. So this was me kind of manifesting that role in my life of people looking for me for like health advice. You know, I wanted to be that. So a lot of people also at the time were not as into like virtual training is a big thing now, but at the time it wasn't, especially to know somebody you're doing that you went to school with that does virtual training. So I did a lot of virtual training in the beginning, and then I eventually started taking clients. And yeah, as far as where I got the initial idea, it was really just me wanting to show people a different side of me that they didn't get to see before.
What did they expect from you before? What would the day in the life have been like?
I think people who were really close to me knew like Bree is super healthy, Bree works out all the time. But other people who did not know me, I think I hid that side very well. You know, like they probably knew I was healthy, but now I share health facts every day. You know, I try to inspire people by living a healthier life myself and showing them easier ways and, you know, long lasting. Because there's a lot of fad diets you can do. And that's why my meal plans are not even meal plans. Like, I'm not going to give you eat this at the sun, eat this at the sun, because that you can fall off from that really easy and it's just not sustainable. So.
Awesome. Good call out. And Christian, how about you? I think you kind of touched on it, but how did that idea, when were you sure that you wanted to lock in, I want to do these resumes?
So, you know, this was something that I used to do for people for free years ago. During college, I mean, I was always kind of a strong writer. I used to like enjoy writing papers and essays, and whereas most people hate doing that. And so I always found it to kind of be fun. And so whenever like a friend would mention that they were looking for a job or that they weren't getting any calls back or whatever, I'd say, oh, okay, you know, let me take a look at it for you. And I would offer. And so you know, I'd say, okay, no, you need to reword that, add this, take this out, blah, blah, blah. And then people would come to me and say like, oh, I'm getting calls back now. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, whatever. You know, I didn't think anything of it. And one day, she's not on the call, but her name is Tifa O. And I used to work with her at Toyota. She was a coworker and a friend. And she said, you know, you're way too good at this to not be charging people for this. And one of the things I said was, somebody's going to pay me to do this. And so she was like, they will, you know, and I was like, yeah, okay. So she's like, I'm going to be your first customer. And she just cash apps me some money. And I'm just like, okay, you know, sure. So, you know, she really kind of gave me that spark of like, you know, oh, I could really, you know, take this somewhere. And then two of my other friends, Kristen and Carmela, both were on me and were like, when are you going to start this? When are you going to start this? And I was like, I don't want to do all that. You know, I don't really want to be that known. I don't really want my flyers everywhere. But it just, before I knew it, it was like, okay, now I'm starting LLC, starting an Instagram page, you know. So it just kind of happened, really, just because the people around me were kind of noticing that and saying like, you know, you're really good at this. So.
Isn't it amazing how other people can see the light in you that you sometimes refuse to see or you can't see? Man, just somebody planting that seed, that first cash app, look what it turned into.
That's what it was. And, you know, I always tell people that the whole quote that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure, it really holds true. Because honestly, I was afraid of that at first. I was like, what if this blows up bigger than what I really want it to be? Or like, you know, what if I like, oh, I can't keep up? Or, you know, I just went for it. So I have to thank them for kind of pushing me and motivating me to do that, because I was kind of like on the edge about it. So
that's awesome. Great. So we have a question in the chat for Bree that's specifically for you by name. But before we do that, for those who are on the Instagram Live, go ahead and click the link in my bio. Come into the conversation room. You can see everybody instead of just hearing these voices like you there with them. Come into the conversation room. Links in my bio. For those of you who have just joined, go ahead and answer the poll question for us. There's a few different poll questions. And also, if you have any questions, comments in the chat, go ahead and throw those in the chat for our entrepreneurs. So from Ray, for Bree, how is it working with your business within a market that is saturated within body care?
So I think you mean, okay. So I think you mean that because like personal training and fitness is a lot of people doing that, right? So what I had to realize is first of all, I don't follow a lot of fitness people at all because I compare myself, and I realized in order for my business to be authentic to me, I cannot have a lot of distractions from other people. Like I'll follow friends and stuff who also do it, but I do not like stare at other people's pages that much to see how they're doing it. Another thing I had to realize is like what sets your business apart, and like what is for you, nobody can duplicate or imitate. So, and I realized my business, I give away a lot of what people say like free advice, but in reality, it's me just serving people and me giving out information that can help them. And a lot of times it turns into clients, it turns into people constantly in my inbox that turn into a client just by me serving people. So that's what sets me apart.
Great answer. And Christian, I'm gonna ask you the same question because I feel like I see enough people doing resume services to probably make me hesitant to want to jump into that. So What keeps you going?
I think it's really just how I market myself, and that I really truly enjoy this. You know, I'll be honest. There's people, I don't see this as much, but what I will say is there's definitely other resume services out there, but they're not necessarily, to be honest, good ones. You know, I've redone plenty that have come to me, and people have said, "Oh, I paid this person to help me, blah blah blah," and I'll look at it off rip and kind of be like, "Nah, I could do a lot more of this. It's missing all this, blah 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 blah." And I've redone them, and they've told me, "Oh my God, I'm getting way more calls back." So I think it's just really like the passion I have for it, and then the marketing. You know, I'm posting stats and salary increases, the percentage of people that have gotten jobs, and then I also post content, relevant articles that are going on in the world, helping you with interviewing or, places that are hiring, things like that. So I think it shows people that, okay, he really likes this. He's not just, slapping together some kind of resume and sending me on my way. Like, you get a full consultation with me. We're going through this on the phone. I'm going in depth with you and asking you a series of questions so that you get back essentially a new work of art.
I want to comment on that really quickly too. I don't think a market being saturated is ever a reason to not go into a market. I mean, if you think about, how many gas stations there are, or coffee shops, or hotels,
fast food.
But what makes a difference really is relationships, right? People want to work with people that they know already. So I'm a photographer also, in addition to my business, and there's a million photographers in Atlanta. But what gets me by is my relationships. So I've been able to establish a lot of key relationships with businesses and peers in the city who, when they need photography services, they come to me. One, because my work is good, but two, because they know who I am. And then also beyond relationships is just the customer service, right? People come back to places where they feel like they're treated like more than a number. So those things really can set you apart, even if you are in a saturated market.
Awesome. You all are getting accolades in the chat. I'm not sure if you're looking, but Carmela shouted you out specifically, Christian. She said it's your talent, period, with T at the end. And then great call out. And then, thanks, so I do have some feedback. I love what you said, Bree. The comparing yourself to others, that you said you do it. So for me, I'm the same way. So I think it's important that we know ourselves. Like, I don't want to follow anybody else who's kind of like in the same lane. I don't even want to. It's a little bit of pride in me. I don't want to take other people's ideas or have it influence my ideas that much, where I feel like somebody can come and say, "Hey, I did that too." So I feel it 100%. But I love that. All great answers. Another question in the chat, and then we'll get back to our regularly scheduled program. This one is from Cameron McDonald. How have you all found the best way to market yourself for a return on your investment into yourself? So return on investment into yourself. So this is dealing with marketing and exposure. And Christian, you kind of touched on that. So your marketing and your collateral. So how do you go about it? What are you thinking about when you're putting out your marketing material?
I try to put out things that would entice me as a consumer who probably needs help with this, to say, okay, let me contact them. What would you, if you were looking for someone to say, okay, I'm looking for jobs, I need a resume, and I'm not good at articulating this on paper. I know I do a lot, but I don't even know where to start. I try to, post things that would attract someone and say, okay, I need to call them. And a lot of that has come from my testimonials. I have people that have said, I don't know you from Adam, but I've, hashtags, whatever it is, that come across my page. And they're like, people have told me, I've read like several of those testimonials, like gone down the page. And they're like, the stuff people are saying about you, I'm like, I got to call him, And this actually, when I first started, happened with a client in California. And she's become actually a really good friend of mine. And she told me when I was done, she's like, I'm telling you, I'm sending you everybody I know in California. And since then, every time I get a call from like a California number, I'm like, this must be somebody that's kind of come as a result of her or someone else I've helped. So, just really focusing on kind of like, what would someone who's looking for your service want to see? And then asking people always ask people, when they come across your page, like, what drew you in? Because like, for instance, like Bree mentioned, okay, well, I'm not the only personal trainer, but just ask, what made you drawn to my page or my service, and just kind of getting that feedback will really help you.
Awesome. How about Julius? How about you? As far as marketing for your business, ROI?
Yeah. So actually, in this particular business, the car business, I don't do a ton of marketing. And there's actually a really good book. It's called Purple Cow by Seth Godin. And in that book, he talks about how the best products, like, you really don't have to market them a lot because they sell themselves, right? Like the most remarkable products really sell themselves. So in this business, the fact that there's a very distinct need that people who want to participate in the ride sharing economies are excluded from that because they don't have a vehicle. The idea that there's a business out there who services that need and closes that gap, and not only provides somebody with transportation, but allows them to make money also, that's been the best marketing. So we do little Instagram ads and Facebook ads here and there just to kind of get the word out. But for the most part, the marketing has just been in the product and the service itself.
Got it. Awesome. Love it. Great answer. Bree, how about you?
For one, it is that I'm constantly educating myself. Like, I'm taking another nutrition course right now. I read books all the time. I do, as personal trainers, you have to get recertified, but I do over and beyond the amount that I have to do. I do it out of my own wanting of knowledge, and I share with people that I am constantly intaking new information. And I think that if you are in a business where people are coming to you as an expert, there's no information coming out all the time. So you have to do what you can do to stay relevant on that, and not, I got certified 3 years ago, so I have to, it's fine to have to get back with somebody, but at the same time. But another thing that I do is on my stories, I'm always posting information, what I do, health facts. And I think people just like somebody that they can engage with. And it has gotten me so many clients. It has built so many relationships with people, just putting out information.
Love it. Great. So we are going to keep pushing with the questions. Love the feedback. And I'm actually writing notes for some questions I might ask a little bit later, but just to keep on with the program. Next question. I think this one will be a good one for Julius. What would you say to the person that wants to be an entrepreneur because they can't see themselves working for someone else? And I think you kind of touched on that, but yeah. So that kind of touches on the idea of just like the freedom part of entrepreneurship. I think there's like this new narrative from like some of these like Instagram influencer entrepreneurs that it's like corny to have a job. And that's like the dumbest rhetoric ever to me. First of all, there's nothing corny about having a job that you work hard at, that you get a paycheck from every 2 weeks, where you have vacation and benefits. There's nothing corny about that. I would say, specific to the idea of not wanting to work for someone else, that is not enough for you to leave a comfortable situation and go out in the wild on your own. I would say really understand the why of the business. If is there a true market for the thing that you want to do? And are you equipped to service that market before you consider exiting a job to work on a business? So to answer the question directly, I don't think that not liking the people you work for, not liking the job in and of itself is enough to leave a job. I think the most important thing about having a job is, are you taking something away that's applicable, right? So for me, in my previous job, I got to the point where I had learned everything that there was to learn, and I wasn't really taking anything away from that job other than the paycheck. And I felt confident that I could figure out how to pay myself, and it was time for me to leave so I can learn some more things. It just happened to be that I was learning those things on my own as opposed to in a corporation. Anybody else want to ask this question?
I will. I think I hear that a lot, and you are always working for somebody. You having a business, like, you are constantly answering to somebody else. Like, I have clients all the time. You have to think about the level of, what do you want when you come to a business? You want people to respond fast. You want this and that. That doesn't mean, I can wake up at 12 o'clock because my day starts when I want it to. If people like to train at 5 a.m., I might not be a morning person, but my client is. And I don't need to get there at 5:15 because she might have to work right at 7, and now I inconvenienced her, and now that lost me a client. So you're always answering to somebody, and you have to be even more flexible and remain poised than I think you do even in a working for a larger company.
Right.
If there's nobody else to block that from you, it's just you and the client, you and whoever you work for.
Nope. Great answer. Christian, good?
I think Bree made a very good point, because like she said, like for someone like us, we're the face of our business. So like if you work for a major company, I mean, your one decision is not going to typically, I used to work for Toyota, for instance. Typically, me as myself, making some error is not going to shut the whole entire company down, or it's not going to remove some large chunk of revenue versus if I'm not responding quick enough, or I'm unprofessional, or I'm rude, then people are going to say, oh, well, I didn't like him, so I don't know if I'd refer you to him because X, Y, and Z, and then they're going to go to someone else. So, you really, I don't like the rhetoric either of, oh, I don't like working for people, because you still do need to have some type of core skills. And I think she mentioned earlier, like for instance, she was trying to learn from working at a bigger gym so that she could, take those skills and apply them on her own. I think that's very important, because then when you work for a major company, especially if it's in the field you want to go, and do entrepreneurial endeavors, and you learn a lot. And then one day you may be managing people. One day I might bring on people and say, okay, maybe I'm getting so big that I need assistance, but I need to know how to manage these people and how to make sure that all my future employees are not quitting on me because I'm rude, or I don't know how to talk to them, or I don't have good interpersonal skills, So I think that there's a lot to be learned from working for other people, and you have to kind of find when that time is for you, if you want to, drift off, or if you want to still do that. But there's nothing wrong with going to a 9-to-5. It just may not be for everyone.
Right. Or they read your old tweets and saw how you were bashing people who worked for other people. I see a lot of that on Twitter and Facebook or whatever. Like you're not leaving a paper trail, but it's all good.
I want to add one quick point too, based on what both Christian and Bree said. So like the notion of not wanting to work for this person at your job. At your job, you have one boss, potentially two, maybe a dotted line boss or something like that, but usually one boss. Imagine having 40 of them. That's what it is. That's what it's like to run your own business. So now I'm not accountable to this one person at my job and delivering on these items that he or she expects from me. I have to do that for everybody, for all my customers. And customers are a lot more fickle in most cases than a boss at an institution, right? So that's something else to consider. If you don't like working for people, entrepreneurship also may not be the best route.
Good. Love it. Love the insight. If you are on my Instagram live, go ahead and jump into our conversation. The link is in my bio. You'll come right into the chat room. You'll be able to see everybody. So I appreciate you for being here. And this is a question for Bree, because you did mention the 5 a.m. starts, and I'm a fan of 5 a.m. in the morning. Can you describe a typical day in the life of Bree?
Okay, so now that I work at a gym, I used to be a morning trainer. Now I'm an afternoon trainer, because majority of people do like to train after work. So that is like larger clientele that way. But usually I wake up my wake up time is around 7 or 8. Now that I have to work at 2 or 1 p.m. sometimes. Frequently, I do have a 5 a.m. client. So 3 days a week, I wake up early enough for that 5 a.m. client. And because I have my own clients before I go to work at the gym that I actually work for. So then I usually have a 5 a.m. client, sometimes a 7 a.m. client. We're quarantined right now, so this is all eliminated. And then maybe it might be 4 clients spread out, however, usually. And then I go to work, and then sometimes I have clients after that too, because I can get off at 8 or 9. So essentially some days I'm training people from 5 or 6 a.m. until 10 p.m. And then 3 days a week, I actually worked out this really good deal. I pitched myself to my apartment complex as a way for them to go up on their rent and tell people, oh, there's a certified personal trainer here who will give you classes. And then they basically comp my rent. So it works out awesome. Okay. It's really great. But I do those classes 3 times a week as well for different hours. And that was really, one of my friends gave me that idea. She was like, why don't you just work for your apartment complex? And I'm like, oh, they don't do that. And I still live with my parents at the time. And when I tell you I emailed 30 or more different apartments, pitching myself. I had a whole letter typed up. This is not a thing in Michigan. I don't think it's a big thing in other states. And then I randomly found this apartment that fit the bait, and they loved it. So basically, I work for my apartment complex, I work for myself, and then I also have virtual clients, and then I work for the gym. And usually I check my virtual clients in that time frame.
I love the hustle. I love it. That's amazing. Julius, how about you with your 40 different bosses?
First, I want to say my grandma is in this thing right now, so shout out to my grandma.
That's awesome.
But a day in the life for me is really different every day. So a lot of people think entrepreneurship is like this glamorous thing, and it's really not. I mean, my days vary greatly. Some days I might be sitting down with a millionaire investor, talking them through my business model and how we plan to be profitable. Some days I might be washing cars, right? Like I have 2 degrees and have worked at some of the most well-known companies in the world, and some days I'm washing cars, right? So it really depends. So meetings, washing cars, I might be handling pickups and drop-offs with my drivers. We've had cars stolen before, so I may be on the phone with the police trying to file a police report. There are accidents, so I may have to go to the site of an accident. I may be at my body shop working with the guy repairing the cars. I may be driving cars back and forth to the mechanics. I mean, it really, any facet of dealing with a vehicle or a rental car company that you can imagine, that's what I do. I do have a co-founder and a business partner. He actually lives in Israel, so I can talk about that more if you want, but he's not physically here. So most of the things that require physical presence to running this business is how I spend my time every day.
Shout out to Max. If we have time, we'll definitely come back to that because that's an interesting dynamic. Julius also repos cars. So if you ever take one of his cars, you can pull it. Christian, how about you? What's a typical day like?
It really varies by the day. You can have, it's kind of similar, I guess I picture like a barber. You may have days that you're extremely busy, and then you may have a day where, it's a little bit slower. So, I have days where I literally have back-to-back clients, I'll have 3 or 4 a day, and then it could be a day that I don't have any. And so usually the days where I don't have any, I just kind of take the time to, create some marketing materials or make some more testimonials, post articles, kind of look up articles of things that I maybe want to touch on, or things that I have a lot of friends. And that's a good thing too. I have a lot of friends that support me. So they'll send me articles and say, hey, you need to post this on your page, or, stuff like that. And so I always try to post that stuff. So, it just varies. You have some days, you have a week where you got 15 clients, and one week you might have 5, but it just kind of balances out. And when I don't have as much of the clients kind of going on, then I just work on posting content on it and stuff. So.
Awesome. Thank you. And we are going to go into the chat for a question. As an entrepreneur, it sounds like they are all at a level where they have to be there to complete the work or run the business themselves. What ways will they take their business to the next level or step away from the business and still get paid? And that's from Lauren. And Lauren is actually one of our original panelists from the first Your Inner Circle discussion. So that's a great question. Let's go with Bree, because I feel like it's hands-on being a personal trainer. Like, you kind of have to be there.
So, yes. So as I get into PA school is very, I'm not gonna have time to train people, essentially. I'm actually already working on, because I do virtual trainings, but that requires a lot of, I constantly talk to my clients. I'm not even gonna have time for that. So I'm already making PDFs. I have a website that's gonna be fully everything that I feel like I could possibly offer you in, an in-person session. So I expect those PDFs to take me a long time, which is why I'm starting now, and I plan to be done by August. And then that's going to help make me passive income while in school. As far as a way, I don't think Body by Bree is something that Body by Bree to me is a startup business for a larger business that I plan to have. And the larger business will have full systems in place so that way I am not the face of it. Because I think before you start a business that you want to grow, you really don't take profit. This is a way for me to make money and build my brand right now. But for a larger business, I would already have employees working for me where I'm the head, I'm the head manager, but I'm not actually training everybody. If that makes sense. I'm not training the clients. And that is not the structure of Body by Bree currently. But for my next business, which that business basically is going to be like a healthcare center with a gym connected. So I'm going to be a provider of care in it, but I'm not going to be training people.
Great insight. Love it. Julius, how about you? 80 cars next?
Yeah, so this is like my number, you can ask my business partner, my number one thing is I want to make things scalable and I want to remove myself from the process so I don't have to be present at all. So there's this guy here in Atlanta, he runs a similar business to me, but he does luxury cars. And he always says, you want to get paid from the neck up. And what that means is basically remove your physical body from your operations and just use your brain. So how do you still get paid without having to rely on your physical body? So for me, one of the things I've been laser focused on since I've started this business is how do I remove myself? So for example, at one point in time, anytime one of my drivers needed to go get an oil change, I would have to either meet them at the oil change shop or I would have to like call the oil change shop and, give them my credit card information, things like that. Now what I've done is I've set up fleet accounts with all the major mechanics around Atlanta. So my drivers can go directly to the mechanic. They can get the oil changed. They send me a text message, I approve it, and then the driver's on their way. So I'm completely removed from that process. I also have a system now where I can call a mobile car washer to come to my garage, wash the car. Again, I approve it on my phone and they're on their way. So I don't have to be physically present for all of that. So I think it's really important as people build businesses to figure out how to scale your business and how to not physically be present, don't have your income be dependent on your physical presence. I think that's really key. I think, especially as we talk about building like generational wealth and things like that, if your business is dependent on you physically being there, you can't pass it on to your family. If that's the case, you own a job. You don't own a business, you own a job. And you can't really pass a job on to somebody. You need to have a business with systems in order to pass that on to somebody else.
Great answer. Love it. Christian?
So that's something that I've kind of been working on, given, the fact that this is very much a more hands-on thing, and someone has to talk to you to really understand what it is that you do, to really understand what you're trying to do and sell it. But one thing that would allow me to be a little bit more hands-off from the day-to-day thing is actually doing more, doing some seminars and things like that, rather than having to actually be the person to do kind of like the daily resumes or something like that. One of my fraternity brothers told me that he wanted me to come to his church and do a workshop and things like that. So that's kind of the thing that would be next more so. And eventually, maybe you get so many of those throughout, the area, or you travel wherever it may be, that you're like, oh, I'm not really exactly doing the actual resumes themselves, or maybe I do it here and there, but maybe I have someone come on to help me, that kind of thing. So that's kind of more next for me, I would say, is just to kind of do like, like a workshop or seminar or something like that, rather than solely just the actual resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn's, all that kind of stuff. So.
Love it. Great question. So I don't think we have anything else in the chat, but you are getting plenty of accolades. So keep coming with the great content, with the great insight. Love it. Next question. Skip that one. How about this one? How did you gain credibility? Christian, how did you gain credibility?
You still on the spot.
I mean, can we touch on it a little bit? So how'd you gain credibility? Because you said you stole other people's customers, like they had a resume, and you said you redid it. So I'm just like, how'd they come to you?
I guess people always say that the most efficient and the most cost efficient, i.e. free source of marketing, is word of mouth. And so when you do a really good job on someone's document, they're gonna tell you to other people. I remember one of my frat brothers told me that he sent me to like his whole chapter, all his coworkers, and he told me, he says, man, one of them was being cheap, and I was like, listen, you need help. Like, your resume is trash. You need help. You need to talk to him. But when you have people like that kind of even advocate for you,
right.
And then I think just the presence, like I said, of just the marketing. And, I know like some people have told me, they're like, you fit the mold for this because you're always dressed up and you're in suits and, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, oh, okay, but how you market yourself, how you brand yourself, the content you post, it really shows when you're truly into something versus just kind of posting that you do resumes. I mean, because, there's always people up on Facebook every day posting who does resumes. But when you really present somebody with a website, with content, with quantifiable results, with testimonials and that kind of thing, I mean, people kind of can't really argue with you there especially when they see people they know if they're in the area. So I think that's kind of how I did it. I hope that answered your question.
It does.
Okay.
Would anybody else like to take a shot at that? The credibility question. How did you build credibility?
I will. So for me, I think just constant, I already said this, but like basically constantly getting new information for yourself and staying as relevant as possible. So, I have a degree, but a degree in exercise science is not enough to actually create like workout plans for people or workout regimens, in my opinion. So I got certified, 2 certifications. Now I'm working on the 3rd certification. Now I'm going for my master. So there's a lot of different ways to establish your credibility in a field where you are constantly working with clients.
Awesome. Good call out. Julius?
I don't have a good answer for this one. I think for me, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before about the product just working and it being a good product. So for me, it was never really about me being credible or having credibility as an individual. If you go to any of my like my website or my Instagram for my car business, you won't see my face anywhere on there because it's really that this business is not about me. It's about having a product and a system that works. So I think the credibility for me has just come from having satisfied customers who have found something that fills a gap and fills a need that they have.
Yeah. So this was one of the questions I was going to ask anyway, but I think it's a good time to ask it. Julius, would you consider Jax to be a passion project, or is it more so just income?
So people ask me this a lot. So I was never passionate about cars, and I'm still not passionate about cars.
Right.
I'm more so passionate just about business, right? Like I like every day waking up, having to figure out how to solve new problems relevant to my business, whether that's how to make sure our pricing structures are a good fit for the market, or how do we approach a new type of customer? How do we bring in a new stream of revenue to this business? So for me, I could be selling hot dogs. Like it really doesn't matter what I'm doing. I think just like for me, the idea of running a business and growing a business is where my passion lies. So it could be in any industry and any function for me.
Bree, how about you? You touched on Body by Bree. Is this passion or is it?
Yes, this is for sure passion, but I do agree with Julius in the fact that like not every business needs to stem from passion, or passion doesn't lead to you getting paid either, because there's a lot of passionate people that are not actually getting money from their business. So mine for sure stems from passion because I am trying to build a brand within myself that can one day, I mean, even as a PA, people seek you out because they have heard about you. That's the number one way that providers of care make even more money, is by word of mouth. So I wanted to create this word of mouth right now versus after 3 years when I have a degree.
Awesome. Christian, how about you? I think I know the answer.
Clarify the question again. I just want to make sure.
Passion or income? Is it about the money or is it about the motivation?
Oh yeah, definitely. I would say it was the passion. Because I never did this, for money. This was something I did for free for a long time. So definitely passion, and I think that's actually, people always say when you're, when you're doing something that you love, that you'll never work a day in your life, or that the money will eventually flow. whether or not, people start off with businesses and then it kind of takes them a while, but when you're really passionate about something, people say the money will follow. And I think that's kind of what happened in my case, but my original intention was not money, it was to help people.
Good call out. I think this is good for all three of you. Next question. Have you ever had to turn down a customer? Because we're talking about the money and it is about making money. You kind of don't know where that next dollar is coming from. Have you ever had to turn down a customer?
I can answer this one. Short answer is yes. I have to turn down customers all the time, particularly in the photography business. So you get to a point where you have to really just decide if something is a good investment of your time, even if there's a dollar value attached to it, right? So let's say I'm getting paid, $200 to go take pictures at somebody's birthday party. Yeah, I would love to put that $200 in my pocket, but between the time that I have to spend driving to that event, taking the pictures, driving home, doing whatever editing I have to do after the fact, let's call it 4 hours. Is that 4 hours is it truly worth that $200 when you consider I have to take that 4 hours away from my car business, right? So although struggling entrepreneurs, we need to figure out how to get money any way we can. Sometimes you have to be able to turn your back on that money for the greater good of whatever else you're working on. So for me, I turned down a lot of customers, paying customers, because I think that my time is better spent doing other things with regards to my car business.
Love it.
I'll go next. So I agree with Julius. I have turned down people for the same reason. Some people want a traveling in-house trainer, and that is not me. You just have to decide what will work for you and what won't. And like he said, it's a lot of extra time traveling with people, setting up there. It's just a lot of other factors, and time is money, like Sarah said in the chat. So, but I also turned down people because, so if you work with a trainer before, they should put you through some original assessment. And sometimes people fail the assessment, and to the point where I'm like, you need therapy. And like, it's within my scope of practice I'm not a therapist, I'm not a physical therapist. I can help you with rehabilitative exercises. But, before I let you injure yourself or before I risk my business, I'm going to refer you to a therapist. And I do have therapists that I actually can refer people to. And a lot of times that builds the relationship that you have with them, because other trainers, I'm sure, would have been like, she just got 2 bad knees. But no, like, you have 2 bad knees that require some therapy, and your whole quality of life will probably improve after that therapy. And then you can come see me.
Good call out. Love it. Christian, how about you?
Not frequently, but I would say sometimes. The primary time I can think of that it happened was there was someone trying to kind of negotiate my rates, essentially. So that kind of, I kind of just moved on and didn't end up taking her on as a client. And I guess that's one thing that you kind of have to learn as an entrepreneur. And I know we touched on this kind of a couple of days ago, but you kind of have to know your worth, and that your worth also means it's not also about always just your time, but it's also focusing on the results that person is going to get. So I may say, okay, you think, oh, it didn't take you, that long to do my resume or whatever it may be. But it's like, okay, but I saved you a lot of time, because had you done this, it wasn't going to turn out how I did it. And then on top of it, statistically based on my clients, you're going to get probably at least on average a $16,000 raise. That can be plus or minus, obviously. So I'm looking at that result, and it should be, that should be a nominal fee if you pay X amount of dollars for me to help you with your resume and provide you with professional services, because you're going to get a large return. So I think that's one thing entrepreneurs should focus on, is just knowing their worth, especially when it comes to rates, and not negotiating them.
Love it. And we're going to, and this is Vance is asking a very, very similar question. I'm going to ask the other 2 presenters about negotiating the rates. But Vance is asking, what are your thoughts on the friend and the family discount? And how do you walk the line of looking out for your folks and knowing your worth as a service provider? So, Bree, can I get the hook up on the workout plan?
I never offer that. And I'm glad that people don't come at me like that, or I'll, if anything, I will send them my actual rates and then be like, this is how I can service you. But I feel like your family and friends, if they really want to support your business, they should be very happy to pay the regular price to support your business.
Love it. Short, simple, to the point. How about you, Julius?
Ain't no discounts. That's the tweet. I mean, if it's not for charity, then there should be no expectation of any discount. Like I do some work with like nonprofits and stuff like that where I cut them a little bit of a break, but especially for friends and family, if you are truly my friend or family, like you should want to pay me what I'm asking for. And I think that if you have a small business, it's helpful to publish your rates online if you work in an industry where that's commonplace. That way there's no question, there's no debating whether someone's going to pay a certain amount. If someone asks you for your services, you send them to your website with your rates, and that's what it is. And they can decide they can book or not to.
Awesome, love it. Christian, anything else you would like to add? I know it's kind of a segment.
You know, I'll say this. Typically, no, because especially now, this is my primary source of income. So I can't discount people's stuff because I mean, yes, if I discount, you start discounting, and you look at the end of the month, and you're sitting there like, oh, well, I'm a little short. Well, that's because you gave out all these discounts. You know, I'm not Walmart, some major corporation. But what I say initially, maybe I did when I was working full time and had it. I kind of would be, you know, with certain friends and kind of, you know, do stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty much ceased. So, so you know, like what everybody else said, you know, you have a rate, and if your friends want to support you, they should want to. And then if you, as the friend, want to offer them one, then go ahead. But I don't think people should come to you ready to just discount your rate. You know,
I agree. So I think about it this way as well, and I know I told people this. What about a friend and family premium? You know they're starting their business. What about giving them a little bit extra, right? It makes sense to me because you know what they're going through and what the struggles they face, but people don't typically agree with me. But, you know, it is what it is. Next question. We have something, Juice, we have one specifically for you. And I think this is very relevant to the time. Due to the social distancing and people having to stay home, how has this pandemic impacted your business? And how are you planning to navigate through this? And well, actually, I'll throw it out to both of you, actually.
Yeah, so for me, it's given the nature of the business that I work in a business of moving people, right? And people are not moving right now. So there definitely has been a pullback from that portion of the business. But you also, a lot of times you hear entrepreneurs talk about building multiple streams of income. And that doesn't always mean that you need to start multiple businesses. So in my business, we've been able to build multiple streams of income within the same business model, right? So the core business is we're renting cars for people so they can drive for Uber and move people from one place to another. But also within the idea of someone having access to this asset of a vehicle, people are not the only things that move, right? So now that people are staying inside their homes more, people are having the things that they would normally go out to get brought directly to them. So fortunately, our drivers have been able to transition into like Uber Eats, Instacart, DoorDash, things like that, because people are having those things delivered to them now. So that's been one way we've kind of been able to navigate. Another stream of revenue that we're tapping into is advertising, right? So if you have ever seen like a New York taxi cab with the backlit sign on the top where they're doing advertisements, they now have digital versions of those. So we're partnering with a company now who puts digital signs on top of the car, and they pay you for it. So basically, we've been able to kind of build multiple streams of revenue around the idea of having a car. So that's kind of helped us out. Now, I think this situation now is really affecting just about every business in some way. So we've definitely seen some pullback again in the movement of people, but because of the other strands, we've been able to kind of navigate through it.
Mm-hmm. Christian, how about you?
I want to make sure I answer the question. Ask me one more time.
The question was from Mary. It was social distancing and the quarantining, and has that affected your resume business at all?
It's hard to tell right now because, well, to be honest, social distancing wouldn't directly because I don't meet with people in person. So I actually do this all over the phone. So directly it wouldn't impact me, but I'll say the bigger picture of the economy could, in the sense of, hiring freezes and stuff like that. But the actual physical capacity, that does not impact.
Mm-hmm.
Bree, go ahead, and then I have a follow-up question for you, Bree.
Okay. So yes, I'm luckily, this is why it's good that I still work for a company too, because they are supplementing my income right now. Because I can't go to the gym, and I do have a large amount of clients there, but everybody else, I just start setting up with virtual at home workouts. And right before this happened, I could see that, people were about to be quarantined for some time. So I made a new virtual workout plan that's like 5 weeks long, full of different engaging home workouts for people that are at home. So I was able to quickly transition a lot of my clients over on that service. So yeah.
Has that benefited? So this is actually the question. Have you seen an increase? Has that benefited your business?
Slightly, but people are also not motivated to be inside, and motivation is something that a trainer cannot give you. So not entirely, not like a huge influx in sales because people are quarantined, because people don't even want to work out in their house, let alone people have kids, and it's just a lot of different factors to take into place. But what I have been able to do is I'm doing an Instagram live this week. I've never been live before, so I'm really hyping it up, right? And if it goes successful, the next one is going to be like it's not expensive, but like a paid rate, And people don't know that yet, but that is something I often do. I test the market first, build the hype up. Everybody can do it for free. Try it out. You like it? Now I have other customers that I just acquired from this free service that I gave out.
Love it. And we have, let's stick in the chat. So from CC, for those of us who are still working on 9 to 5 but have entrepreneurial goals, what are your recommendations for prioritization and work-life balance? Prioritization and work-life balance for the entrepreneur-ish, not the full-time entrepreneur.
I'll answer that. So for me, I would just say you got to prioritize by what's the most important, right? So for me, although I never wanted to get fired from my job or anything, and unfortunately I didn't, but it got to a point where I realized, okay, I care more about my business than I do coming to this job to get a paycheck, right? So I was mindful about giving what at the time was a side project in Jax, giving that a little bit more of my time and my attention. Now, I was prepared to not have a paycheck anymore because I was already planning on leaving. So if that's not the case for you, then obviously you will have to prioritize differently. So I would say just whatever's the most important to you obviously has to go at the top of the list for your priorities. And then what was the second part of the question? Work-life balance. I don't know. For me, enjoying my life is mandatory. That's not optional for me. So I'm never going to be so buried in my business that I forget to go outside and meet with my friends. We can't really go outside right now, but hang out with my friends and, go for a bike ride or go to the mall, whatever it is that you enjoy. Those things are mandatory, not optional for me. So if that means I have to wake up a little bit earlier because I know I have a lot of work to do so I can go out in the evening, then that's what I do. But I make sure that I still build in time to enjoy myself.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll comment too. For me, I would work a lot before my job and then a lot after my job. So like he said, waking up earlier or staying up later. If I know I have something that I want to go to or an event I want to attend, I usually overwork for a few days before that. In light of that, I'm going to be absent or whatever. Or I'll even work on content the night before. You can save stuff to be posted later on Instagram. So that's something else I use. There's even apps that you load it into there, and then as soon as the time that you want it to be posted shows up, you can instantly post it at that time, which removes you from having to be out with friends, but you're like, oh, I was supposed to make a post or I was supposed to market this. You can just tap that and now you're on your phone for 2 seconds versus a portion of the dinner. So I just make those same sacrifices that Julia said, do more here and after, and then prioritize what you have to do. Like when I went for California for my interview for grad school, I knew I needed a clear mind. So I did just let people know, like, I'm going on a business trip. You know, I still would communicate with my clients virtually while there and check in, but you know, they couldn't tell I was absent, but I was pretty absent.
Awesome. Great call out. So we have about 10 or so minutes left. So we'll do our best to get to the chat questions. I have a few more questions for myself. Bree, and I'm going to ask this one to you because it's kind of a segue to what you just said. What's your relationship as an entrepreneur like with mental health and just a hustler, the hustler you are?
So I do a lot of like self-reflection as a person. I feel like this business has grown me in ways I didn't even think it could. I never realized how in order for you to really have a successful business, you have to have a successful mindset for the most part. So I pour a lot into myself as far as podcasts, books, TED Talks. Like those are like the three things that I will probably come up first on my phone, other than like how I market, which is Instagram. But a lot of it is just like positive mindset material. So I'm always looking for a book or something that is going to pour into me and keep my mind thinking of ways that I can be inspired by other entrepreneurs in business, because I did not go to school for business. I did not learn systems. So I'm really teaching myself this and learning it from other entrepreneurs.
Love it. Christian, how about you?
I think one thing is just having an open mindset, but then even sometimes just, taking a step back to, focus on yourself and meditate, right? Things like that. And just be open to advice. It's funny because I actually get maybe a lot of unsolicited advice sometimes, but not in a bad way. But, people come to me, hey, think about this. And so I think, just being open-minded, because people really, at least the people who I know are doing this, have good intention for you. And so, just never thinking that you're too good to, not listen to someone or, so I think just really being open-minded when you're running a business is a good attribute to have.
Julius?
Yeah, really quickly. So I just do, I do a lot of yoga. It's good for your body physically, but it also helps you kind of zero in on your mental space. Then also I have a kind of like a affirmation that I wrote for myself, and I say that first thing in the morning when I wake up every day, and it's really just filled with things about positivity and having a good outlook on life and being loving, giving and receiving love and things like that. So I kind of start my day with that every day before I get started, just to put me in a good space.
I want to add one thing. When I exercise, I usually do not answer my phone, because exercising, since I personally train everybody, that time has to be reserved for me too. So that is how I do my mental health. I also meditate. And like Julia said, I have all my goals written down in a journal, divided up. Like journaling has been such, and I actually got that from you, Shell, at that conference with Tia for the kids. Okay. Like, okay, he said he journals. So, I tried it the end of last year. Yes, and it changes your life. Okay, it's really awesome.
Yeah. All right, so we are about to go really quick into the chat. We're going to do some rapid fire chat questions, just because we're bumping up against time, self-imposed time limit. But first question: does anyone have a financial advisor in the group?
I used to. I got rid of them.
Why did you get rid of them?
I just felt like I could do it myself. I feel like I could do everything he was doing, so I just got rid of him.
Okay, awesome.
But Vontae is very into finance. That's my boyfriend. So He's basically like my in-house financial advisor.
Perfect. Christian, how about you?
I don't have an established one, but I have like one of my really good friends who is in the chat. She's a finance lot, so she gives me a lot of advice, but I don't necessarily have an established one per se. But.
Okay, awesome. Next question, what app is this? This is Webinar Jam. Next question, those of you who have had careers in business, do you think it helped prepare you for operating your business? So I guess that's all of you.
Yeah, for me, I would say that the act of working in a business, it kind of taught me how to work with people, but I feel like going deep on your domain, your industry, your function is what really gives you the value. So from that perspective, no, I worked at Amazon in digital marketing, and that didn't help me a ton. Somebody mentioned it earlier, but if you have an opportunity to work in a business that does something similar to what you want to do, then I would advise that.
Perfect. Go ahead.
For me, I think so too. Like me working for a business has just taught me a lot about the training side of things that I never thought about. So that's my giving me more insight.
Perfect. Christian, you got anything?
No, not really.
All right, perfect. I love it. Just want to make sure I'm not skipping anyone. Okay. What is your 5-year vision for your business? So we talked about scaling. I think we kind of touched on this, but really quick, Juice, 5 years. Where do you want to see Jack's Automotive?
I don't really look out that far. I mean, I think the landscape I'm in will be completely different in 5 years. I mean, we might have self-driving cars and who knows what in 5 years. So for me, I think just in general, like I probably will be more of a serial entrepreneur. I probably will start and sell many businesses. So I may still own this business. I may not in any capacity. I don't think I'll be as deeply involved as I am now. I probably will be, you know, at a president level where I'm just advising other people if I haven't sold it yet.
Christian?
You know, I kind of similar to Julius. I don't necessarily have a 5-year plan. I know some of the things I want to do are I kind of touched on earlier, like, you know, kind of maybe getting a little bit more hands off and expanding to do some workshops, seminars, etc. But I don't necessarily have a big in-depth 5-year plan just yet.
Yeah, my 5-year plan would be graduating PA school, working first, and then starting a larger business. But no, I don't have a 5-year plan for Body by Bree because it's never had intentions of going that long.
Awesome. Next question. I'm going to throw this one to Julius and see if he recognizes the name. This one is from Angel Stallings. Did you all have a financial goal before you went into full-time entrepreneurship? Julius, do you recognize that name first and foremost?
I do recognize the name.
So it's ironic. It is so ironic. Angel wrote Julius and I this letter.
Oh, okay. I was like, I recognize the name, but I couldn't remember.
I'll give you that alley-oop. So who is Angel, Julius?
So Angel is one of the recipients of our scholarship. So Shell and I have a scholarship at our alma mater that we've dedicated to people like us from minority ethnic backgrounds who are going into the field of business. So she was one of our scholarship recipients. That's dope. Yeah, so I touched on that a little bit earlier, but I really just went back and looked at how much money I spent throughout the entire year. So I didn't go back and account for, you know, any money that I was repaid or anything like that. Like all the money I spent in 2018, divided 12 into that number, and that let me know how much I needed for a month, every month. And I wanted to have enough to last me for a whole year before I left my job. So that was kind of my method of my financial method before I left.
All right. Anyone else? Christian, Bree? We got more questions.
No, when I was full-time entrepreneur, I still lived at home with my parents, so I had a covering over me. Right now, I'm not a full-time entrepreneur, so.
Man, and let me tell you, living at home with your parents is a blessing. I lived at home with my parents for 2 years, so I traveled 100% for work, and that was a blessing in and of itself. But shout out to my mom; she's in here right now as well. So me being able to stay at home, and live at home with my parents, and have that covering, as you said, I was able to actually save up enough money for this place. So I bought this place at the end of last year. So definitely a blessing. Shout out to parents. This one is from Lathan Williams. I might have missed this, but what was the greatest struggle early on and how did you overcome? So you didn't miss that, Lathan. That was actually one of the questions I had, so perfect. What is one of the greatest struggles that you had to overcome early on in your entrepreneurial journey?
Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, no, you go ahead.
Okay. For me, it was not being afraid to raise my prices accordingly. And I think a lot of people struggle with that as a new business because you're like, it's expensive But if you know your service is good and people love your service and you're constantly adding to your own product, which for me is myself, but yeah, you have to not be afraid to up your prices. And that was something I struggled with. And I actually had another entrepreneur pouring into me, telling me you're going to drive yourself into a wall if you do not get comfortable upping your prices. And luckily I listened to her and I didn't, but I could see where I was headed. So
Awesome.
I think that was also one of mine was, pricing. And then firstly, I'll say it was balancing, because someone mentioned that earlier, I didn't get a chance to touch on it, but also balancing, I had a 9-to-5. So to be blunt, I would actually be, I would be doing these at work sometimes. I'm not saying that I necessarily encourage that, but you have to kind of know your schedule and what works for you. And when somebody may or may not be looking for you, but I have resumes I would be doing at work. I would be doing them after work, and my whole day would be consumed with work. And by the time I'd be done, it'd probably be 10, 11 o'clock, and I'd be exhausted. To be honest, the whole day was gone. So just really trying to find the balance of that, because then I'm like, well, how was I supposed to go to the gym and work out or stuff like that if I just spent, however many hours, 14, 16 hours working? And then secondly, yes, the rates, because you kind of like, okay, I've heard people say if you don't get any pushback, then you're not charging enough, So just trying to establish when you should, amend your cost structure, the timing of it, and then just being able to be firm and not, playing the negotiating game. Like, hey, this is the price. If you go into Target, I may think some of their products are high, but I can't go in there and say, you know what, this is 75. I'll give you 50. No, that's not how it works. So, just being able to kind of figure out that price point and when to go up is also kind of sometimes a struggle.
For me, I would say it was just like learning how to create boundaries with my business. Because I'm working at home a lot of the times, when I'm sitting on my couch watching TV, I'm still kind of at work. And because my business is customer facing, my customers don't necessarily understand that I'm just one person that also has a life. So I basically just had to set a cutoff time. Like now, if a customer tries to reach me after like 8 or 9 o'clock, I usually just let it wait for the next day unless it's an emergency. So that was the big thing for me, really just understanding how to create those boundaries so I don't drive myself crazy working all the time.
All right, perfect. I think we pushed through most of the questions in the chat. Now I have 2 or 3 more questions. First question, and probably don't need a yes or no answer. Is being an entrepreneur for everyone? I'll start with Julius.
No. Nothing's for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Christian?
Definitely not.
Bree?
No. I agree. Nothing's for everybody.
Man, and it's like there's so much. There are benefits, and don't let social media tell you that working a 9-to-5 isn't a good deal. Sometimes, like oftentimes, a lot of times, there are benefits.
A lot.
Mainly benefits, right? So benefits. Don't have to worry about that. Just a constant paycheck. The perks of being at work. Man, don't let social media fool you. Do not let them fool you. Next,
I think social media pushes that. I think social media sometimes erroneously pushes that. Right. And people, start a business, you should be an entrepreneur. I'm like, but you have to find something that you're passionate about and that you want to do, and that you're willing to invest that much of your time into. You don't just start a business. It's not quite that simple, and it's not for everybody. There's a lot of ambiguity that comes with this that we deal with. While it looks, people tell me, oh, you're living a life. You don't have to go to work every day. And I'm like, I'm not going to say that there's not benefits to being able to set my own schedule, but it's not perfect. Trust me.
Perfect. Next question, we kind of touched on it, but what are you reading? And we'll start with Julie. So what are you reading right now, currently?
What am I reading right now? I just finished reading a book called Venture Deals, which talks about basically like raising money for your business. I have a book called 3 Magic Words. That's my favorite, probably one of my favorite books ever. I've read it a bunch of times, but I always reread it for kind of new inspiration. What else am I reading? I just finished reading a book called The Republic by Plato. If you're into philosophy, that's a good book. It kind of just gives you an idea of like kind of different ways to think about issues.
All right. Christian, what about you?
I have to be honest here. I have not really been reading anything like that. But I'm definitely open to whatever suggestions anyone may have. They can pop in the chat, and I will make a recommendation of a book that I do think people should read, and that's The Millionaire Next Door. And it's a really good book that teaches about financial, just financial decisions and, best practices. And it dispels a lot of myths of what people think about millionaires and just kind of, giving you tips toward achieving financial success. So, yeah.
Copy. And Bree.
I'm reading Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice by Dennis Kimbrough. This book, I'm almost at the very end, and it is like so good. It's life-changing. I definitely would recommend it, and I haven't even finished it yet. But it just changes your mindset of everything, and every business is also like Black owned or minority owned, and it talks about ancestors, it talks about current people, tells you many life stories. One of my favorite books is Eckhart Tolle, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. And this really talks to you about the ego. And I think in business, it is important to not have a huge ego because it will just not lead you to being very successful. So if you are interested in the ego, that book is great.
What was that book, Bree, once again?
It's called Eckhart Tolle, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. And him and Oprah have a whole podcast on it too, chapter by chapter. So you can read it and listen to a chapter.
Okay, and this is my final question. There's questions coming in the chat. I just want to make sure we're respectful of everybody's time. My final question, and it's kind of like for the group, so I'm gonna throw this out. If you had to come up with a boot camp training that all entrepreneurs have to go through, what does it look like? So this is the question for everybody. You could kind of build on each other's answers. What would that boot camp look like if you had to build a boot camp for entrepreneurs?
I would say I would build in customer service into it, because that's been my biggest struggle. Like, people are just not like, some people are just not rational humans. Like they don't think things through. They don't think logically. But you inevitably have to deal with people like that in business. Like that's just part of it, and that's my biggest struggle. So I would certainly build that into a boot camp, customer service.
What would you add on, Bree?
Oh, I'm thinking real quick.
Christian, what would you add to it?
To be honest, Julius really took what I was going to say, because that's the biggest thing that I noticed that a lot of smaller businesses sometimes lack is that customer service piece. And it's funny because I'll have clients come to me and they'll say, "Oh my God, you responded so quickly." And in my head, I'm thinking, "Oh, is that abnormal?" But people sometimes don't expect, I guess, I don't know what they expect, but people kind of lack the customer service piece, and that's really the core component of your business. I think I've learned that a lot of people come to me because of honesty of me, because of the getting to know them during the consultation, actually showing that you care, not rushing them through the process and being patient. So I think you really do have to have a customer-centered module when you're working in a more client-facing, front-facing type of role.
I think for me, it would be how to stay ahead of the curve, and also basically just a course on how Julia said earlier, showing the difference between like what is a business and a job, and I think I know as an entrepreneur right now, I basically own a job, because until I make these PDFs how I want them to be, where somebody can like auto pay before I touch them at all, I have to physically be there. But I know that difference, and I realize that in my business, but I don't think that a lot of people realize if you want to grow something sustainable for future generations, you have to be focused on how you can remove yourself from it.
Love it. Love it. One thing I will add, and I get this from one of the leaders of our organization I work for, profit is not a bad word. I think a lot of people shy away. Like the end game, why we are all in business at the end of the day is to make money. And I think focusing on that and not being afraid of that, like how you touched on, no discounts or reasonable discounts, however you want to say it. But the purpose of being in business is to make money. And then whatever you are selling, this is number 2, whatever you are selling, whether it be a product or service, have it in stock. And I think one of our marketing professors used to say this back in the day: good marketing makes a bad product fail faster. So you could put out all the social media, you could throw out all the marketing ads, spend all the marketing dollars. But if you have a terrible product, they just know it's a terrible product. They're going to get to your product faster, and it's going to fail them quicker. So making sure you're really good at what you do. and then having the emotional intelligence, the energy, the so on and so on. There's so much going on in the chat. I think it's mostly books, but that's the last question that I have. And just to be respectful of everybody's time, I want to give everybody, all of our panelists, a chance just to talk about whatever you have coming up, any final thoughts that you may have, plug whatever you need to plug, and we will wrap it up.
Yes.
Let's start with Bree.
Okay, so I am going live on my first Instagram ever workout. So the first exercise is for like lower body and abs. Thank you. So you can see my Instagram on the side, bree.hat, so you can follow me, and that's free. And then we're doing upper body on Thursday. So that's my next thing.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate you, Bree. I appreciate your insight on the panel. You have been amazing. Christian, how about you? What you got for us?
Yeah, so once again, I'm Christian Williams, and I have my professional development business, which focuses on resume development, cover letters, LinkedIn, interview prep, all of that kind of stuff. You can follow my business page, which is at CJW Consulting, and I'll drop that in the chat as well. And then I also have a website that's cjwconsultinggroup.com. And then Shell's just going through some of my promotional content, high level. Approximately 96% of my clients have secured interviews within the first 30 days. Now, of course, there are a lot of external factors with that. And I always tell people, I can't promise you that you're going to get the interview that you want tomorrow. That happens, but of course, I can't promise that. But what I can tell you is that statistically, these are the results that you're going to get, and you're going to leave me in a much better place than when you came. And then he passed the average salary increases, $16,630 per client, which over the course of this time I've polled, I think it's 62 clients, and they've experienced a total amount of salary increases of over $1 million.
Man, say it again. Say it one more time, because I know they're reading it.
I did a poll, and based on 62 clients, the average salary increase was over $16,000, and the total reported salary increases were over $1 million.
$1 million. That's changing lives, man. I appreciate you. Anything else, Christian?
Thank you. Nope. I think that covers it all. So.
And Christian, I thank you for jumping into this panel. I know you were, I guess, a last-minute addition. However, the insight that you have brought, everything that you added to the conversation, thank you for jumping in and for just you showed out, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem. And Julius, how about you?
Yeah, so I had several art shows and speaking engagements coming up, all of which have been canceled due to the situation that we're going through right now. So really, I'm just locked in, trying to grow the business. This is my t-shirt line that I have on my website. I'm most active on Instagram, so I post stuff there pretty much daily, whether it be business or just everyday life. So yeah, you can follow me there to stay up to date. Have new art dropping soon. The art that I already have is on my website, juliusbryant.com. First name, last name on pretty much every social media, so I'll drop it in the chat too.
So I have about 3 of Julius's pieces, and I'll be right back. So maybe
That's nice.
No, okay, that's cool.
Thank you.